He's Jewish. They give me a little thing on my head. We had candles and we had food. Next week I'd go over to the
So you got to
Italians.
experience all these soldiers with different backgrounds
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
culture, and
yeah.
do you think that benefited you?
Oh yeah, uh-huh. I got a kick out of the New Yorkers.
Mm-hmm.
See, I joined they came from Camp Upton, New York. They never shot a gun and they never drove a car. We spent 3 months teaching them so we could go overseas. And they always thought we were hillbillies.
What countries did you travel to? Do you remember?
You mean in the United States?
Overseas. Tell the people which countries you went to. North Africa.
Yeah.
You went to Italy, southern France, maybe up into Belgium during the Battle of the Bulge.
Oh yeah.
Germany.
Well, we just went to Germany a couple of days on a sightseeing trip.
Right. Did you ever make it to England?
No, my brother
Okay.
come from England. I met him overseas.
Oh, tell us your brother's name.
George,
Mm-hmm.
George Hendricks. He lived in Dayton.
Where'd you meet him at?
We met him in France. They were coming over.
Mm-hmm.
He was attached to an English group. They were what you call infantry,
Mm-hmm. Was he older or younger than you?
younger.
Younger than you. And what'd you guys do when you met?
Oh, we sat down there and we had a talk and so forth. He introduced me a couple other guys that were from Dayton. And I knew the one real well. I went to school with him.
Did he then travel on to his service in Europe then,
Yeah,
separate from you?
he was home before I was.
Mm. Did you keep a personal diary of your experiences?
Nah,
Just kept it all up here, huh?
yeah, too much writing.
What do you remember the day that the war ended in Europe and Japan? Do you remember where you were at? Were you still in Europe?
Yeah, I was still in Europe.
What were your emotions at that time when you found out that both Europe, Germany, and Japan had surrendered?
Didn't have to worry one way or the other because everything was happy. Everybody was happy. How soon we going home?
How long did it take you to get home?
Well, we went from there back to Africa, and they threw an offer to us that if anybody was willing to stay for another year or a year and a half, I could be a master sergeant. The job was to take care of everything that's on the beach and on the desert, to see that it gets back to the United States.
Did you volunteer for that?
Huh?
Did you volunteer for that?
No, I rode home and my wife, she says, get your you-know-what home. No use staying over there any longer.
Did you come home in 1945 or 1946? Do you
I come
remember?
home in 45, October.
Tell us about your return home.
Well, where we were up there, we had what you call inspections every day. We had to dump our duffel bag out, and if you had any guns or anything like that, they would confiscate it. And I had a little, what you call, Italian Beretta.
Mm-hmm.
I kept it in my tobacco pouch. And when I laid my pipes down in my tobacco pouch, they never checked it. That's how I got that home.
So you came back to where in the States? Which base did you go to?
I came back to Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania.
Is that where you were discharged from?
Yes.
And tell everyone how you got from Indiantown Gap back to Dayton.
Well, they put us on a train, and we come all the way down to Dayton, and they left us off at the Union Station.
Were you greeted at the train station, or did you walk or catch a car home?
I took a streetcar home.
You remember the reaction of your family when you got home?
Yeah, it's just my mother-in-law and my wife.
And what was their reaction?
Well, they couldn't believe it. But anyway, they were really happy to see me.
Did you have children when you went into the Army?
No, no.
Mm-hmm. What did it feel like your first days back? Explain to everyone what it felt like and what you did with
Well,
yourself.
Let's see. I think I come home in the middle of the week. And my brother that I met over there in Germany, France, anyway, they had a get-together. And they had a big gang, all the relatives and so forth, taking pictures and whatever. I was still in my uniform. And then, I don't know how long it's been, I started to look for a job. And that was it.
Did you have other relatives besides your younger brother in the service?
No.
And
I had cousins from Greenville and
mm-hmm.
Springfield that were in service,
Mm-hmm.
but I never run into them anywhere.
What did you do before you were drafted?
Well, let's see. I worked for a printing company. I run a 4-color mealy press
Mm-hmm.
for loose wows for their baking products, which we had overseas. That we called it dog biscuits. They said all that different stuff overseas.
As part of the rations?
Yes.
What about after the war? What vocation did you go into? What did you decide to do?
Well, I first had a job, worked night shift in the Dayton Steel Foundry. And everything was belt driven in that day. I had to oil all the presses, clean all the shavings off the lathes and stuff. And I kept that for about a year. And down the street from there was the General Motors plant. I went in there, put in an application, and I got a job. I took welding and sheet metal. And I worked there till they had a layoff. Then that layoff, I took a job out. My dad and my uncle worked out at the NCR. So they talked to the guy over there, and he asked me to come in. So I had to take the test to see whether I could handle tools, which I did. So I got a job in assembly room.
Did your family lose anyone in the war?
No.
Did you lose any friends from high school or from Dayton in the war?
Yes, I almost signed up, I forget what they called it. They said 37th Division.
Mm-hmm. Ohio National Guard Division.
National Guard.
Mm-hmm.
I played softball with them, but I never signed up. And when they was telling me all about that training and everything they took, I thought I was better off. Well, anyway, they got shipped out over there in,
Pacific Theater.
yeah, they were completely wiped out.
Mm.
That was the bunch I played ball with.
Oh.
Yeah.
What? I'm going to follow up with a couple other questions. Tell the people your living accommodations generally while you're overseas in Italy or France. Tell them about how you guys, where you lived at, what kind of billets you had, and how you learned to adapt.
What do you mean by?
Where you slept at.
Oh.
Um,
Well, we had our regular bunks
Mm-hmm.
in our places on these different camps where we were.
Mm-hmm.
We still had our bunks to sleep on.
Overseas, did your unit stay in civilian structures, or did you have your own
We
little
had our own
living
we never-
area?
I don't ever recall except that when we were in, like say, taking basic,
Mm-hmm.
we were all indoors, had our regular bunks and all,
Mhm.
same as it was over in the quartermaster depot. But we
And-
didn't, only when we went on maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
I was on 3 maneuvers.
Mm-hmm. Were you in the Louisiana maneuvers?
Yeah, oh boy, that was a dog.
The Tennessee maneuvers?
Tennessee, and then, what do you call it? What do you call it? South Carolina
Oh,
maneuvers.
okay.
That was my last one.
Mm-hmm.
We went from there clean over to the place where you get on the boat, St. Hendricks.
And tell the people what kind of battle damage you observed on the vehicles that were shipped back for you guys to repair the tanks, especially in the armored vehicles. How were they damaged?
Well, usually, mostly was tracks.
Mm-hmm.
That was the biggest thing, to stop the tracks.
Mm-hmm.
You usually hit this front end of, everything was all plexiglass up in the front. It wasn't glass, it wouldn't splatter or anything like that. But usually your fenders, it was always mostly the track.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big damage.
Did you ever see any German tanks?
Oh yeah, we've seen a lot of them up there in the
Did you
desert.
examine them and look at them? And
Yeah,
what do you think of their equipment?
well, I thought the ones that they had in Africa up there in the desert, they were a lot faster, lighter.
Mm-hmm.
They hit and go, hit and run, away we go.
Did you ever see any German prisoners?
A lot of them.
And what was your impression of them?
Well, we had 30 of them at one time at our place. They were, and the only problems we had with them, the officers didn't want to
Mm.
stay with the regulars.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to go in where the regular officers, they figured they were treated much better.
Mm-hmm.
But these ones we had,
Were they on work details?
right there,
Is this when you were on guard duty?
oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sergeants, we had more sergeants in our outfit than you could shake a stick. And everyone had a special detail to handle. When you were on guard duty, you was on 2 and off 2.
Mm.
And these guys, they were what you call artists in their work.
Mm-hmm.
This is what they made for me.
You want to hold this up to the camera and show everybody? And tell them how you had these made and what they
These
represent.
were made for us when we were in France.
And the prisoners made these for you.
Prisoners made these for us.
Did you give them anything, or they just make them out of kindness?
Cigarettes,
Mm.
chocolate,
Okay.
and they didn't need anything for their girlfriends but they really liked to play the Army boys in soccer because they could kick the hell out of them. They really were. But they were a good bunch of people.
The U.S. soldiers played the German soldiers in soccer.
Yeah,
And who won?
the Germans were much far. Our outfit never knew much about soccer, you know what I
right.
mean? Like it is today.
Right.
But they really done the job.
If you'd played them in football, we would have
Well,
beat them in
yes.
football.
But they did have a couple of fellas there that was boxers. But we couldn't find anybody who was willing to go up against the boxers.
What would you tell young people about your military experience? If you had to summarize your military experience, if they ask you about the military, what would you tell them about it?
Well, when I first started, I was kind of leery about it. But as I went on and got to getting more acquainted with the different people, and those were in charge of it, and things was working out a lot easier. And I really liked it when I was given my truck and I go out, bring everything I needed for the company area, our supplies, and our shower room. There were places we had to use rivers to shower. And the worst experience I had was when we on Louisiana. We pulled in this town and they had a great big water tower. And they had what you call big coverage, nothing up above, but and there was a building up there and it was full of the ladies of the night. And they would holler, honey, honey, this, that, carry on. But that was, you had to take a shower, but you knew they were watching. But everybody enjoyed it.
What? How do you think your service and experiences affected your life?
I think it made it a lot better.
Is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't spoken about yet?
Well, nothing that I know of, that I come out scot-free without any damage, other than a little old ankle.
What would you want young Americans to know about World War II?
Well, we had to do it, that's for sure.
This concludes the interview of Norman L. Hendricks, 12 June 2012.